This is part 2 of Grace's story. If you haven't watched part 1, stop now and go back. You need to know how the overlooked daughter inherited $53 million, how her sister tried to kill her 3 times, and how her cold father loved her by staying distant. This is what happened when Grace discovered she wasn't alone, and when her enemies decided to destroy her one last time. You need to leave Nigeria in 48 hours, or we will have you arrested. Grace Okafor stared at her phone, reading the text message for the 3rd time. The sender, Tokunbo Oladipo, her half-brother, the CEO of the company her biological father had built. A man whose blood she shared but who'd never met her, never wanted to meet her, and was now threatening to have her thrown in a Lagos prison. Grace sat in a $400 a-night hotel room at Echo Hotel, watching her bank account balance drop to 0 on her laptop screen. Frozen. Every account, every property, every business Emanuel had left her. Blessing had done it. Had filed some emergency motion in Chicago, convinced a judge that Grace was a fraud, and frozen $53 million in assets while Grace was 4,000 miles away, unable to defend herself. Grace had $2,847 in cash. That was it. Her phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. "We saw you on the news, trying to scam another family. You should be ashamed. Go back to America, fraud artist." Grace's hands shook. She pulled up CNN on her laptop, and there was Blessing, her sister wearing a conservative black dress, sitting across from an interviewer, crying delicate tears. "My father was confused in his final months," Blessing said, dabbing her eyes. "On heavy medication. And Grace, my sister, the person I trusted, she took advantage of that. She isolated him, made him sign documents he didn't understand. And now she's in Nigeria claiming inheritance from a second family? It's fraud. Pure fraud." The camera cut to Daniel, Grace's ex-husband, the man who'd left her for Blessing 3 months after Emanuel's funeral. "I was married to Grace for 5 years, Daniel said, his face serious, concerned. "I loved her, but toward the end, she became obsessed with money, with proving she deserved more. I think she saw an opportunity with her father's illness, and she took it." Grace felt bile rise in her throat. They'd planned this, coordinated it, waited until she was in Lagos, couldn't fight back, couldn't hire lawyers, couldn't defend herself. Another text. "The Oladipo family has contacted authorities. You will be arrested for attempted fraud. Leave now." Grace looked around the hotel room, at the suitcase she'd packed in Chicago 6 days ago, full of hope, at the folder of documents, Emanuel's letter, the DNA evidence, Barrister Coker's confirmation that Chief Adeyemi Oladipo had left instructions about her, at the photo of a man she'd never met, her biological father, Chief Adeyemi, dead for 33 years but supposedly watching over her from beyond the grave. Some protection that turned out to be. Grace's phone rang. "Aunt Nettie. Grace, baby, come home. This isn't worth it. You have Emanuel's inheritance. That's enough. Don't fight for people who don't want you." They froze Emanuel's inheritance. Blessing filed. "I know. I saw the news. Everyone saw. Grace, please. Just come home. We'll figure it out here." "With what money? I can't even afford the plane ticket home." Silence on the other end. Then, "How much do you have?" "Less than $3,000. "I'll wire you money, enough to get home. But Grace, you need to leave Lagos. Now, before they arrest you." Grace hung up, sat on the bed, and made a decision. She wasn't leaving. If you've ever been accused of something you didn't do, if you've ever had your name destroyed by people who should have loved you, this story is for you. Subscribe right now because Grace is about to lose everything and then fight back harder than anyone expected. Hit that like button if you believe sometimes you have to stand alone to prove you belong. Comment. Have you ever had to fight for something everyone said you didn't deserve? Let's continue. Grace stood outside the gates of the Oladipo family estate in Ikoyi the next morning, watching a security guard speak into a radio. She'd taken a taxi here, had spent $40 she couldn't afford, had worn her best dress, the one she'd worn to Emanuel's funeral actually, because it was the only formal thing she'd packed. Behind the 12-foot iron gates, she could see the mansion, white columns, wraparound balconies, gardens that stretched toward the ocean. Somewhere in that house was her family, her father's widow, her half-siblings, people who shared her blood but wanted nothing to do with her. The security guard returned. "Madam, the family says you are not welcome. Please go." "I have an appointment." Barrister Coker confirmed. "They canceled it. They say you should leave Nigeria." Grace felt something crack in her chest. "Can I just speak to someone? Anyone, please?" "Madam." A car pulled up behind Grace. Expensive. A man stepped out, light-skinned, mid-40s, wearing an agbada that probably cost more than Grace's entire suitcase. "You're Grace," he said. "Yes, and you are?" "Olumide Oladipo." Lumi, the youngest, the one nobody listens to. He walked past her to the gate, spoke to the security guard in rapid Yoruba. The guard looked uncomfortable but opened the gate. Lumi turned back to Grace. "Come, before they realize I'm letting you in. Your family doesn't want me here. My family is scared. There's a difference." He gestured toward the house. "They saw you on CNN, saw your sister's accusations, saw your ex-husband's testimony. They think you're a con artist. I'm not. I know." Lumi studied her face. "You have father's eyes. Exactly his eyes. Same stubborn chin. Same way of standing when you're nervous." He smiled slightly. "You're an Oladipo. I can see it. But I'm the only one who wants to." Grace followed him through the gates, up the driveway, toward the house where her father had lived and died without ever knowing her. Inside, the family was waiting. Chief Mrs Oladipo, Grace's father's widow, sat in a high-backed chair like a throne. She was in her 70s, elegant, wearing traditional wrapper and blouse. Her face was cold. Beside her, Tokunbo, the oldest son. 50s, expensive suit, arms crossed, expression hostile, and Sade, the daughter, late 40s, designer dress, looking at Grace like she was something dirty someone had tracked in on their shoes. "So," Mrs. Oladipo said. Her voice was crisp, British accented. "You're the American girl claiming to be my husband's daughter. I'm not claiming anything. I have documents that could be forged, letters that could be faked, a story that sounds very convenient for a woman whose inheritance was just frozen in America." Mrs. Oladipo leaned forward. "Tell me, Grace, how much money do you think you'll get from us?" Grace felt her face flush. "I didn't come here for money. Everyone comes here for money." Tokunbo's voice was flat. "Our father was a wealthy man, and dead men can't defend themselves against paternity claims. I have proof." "Proof?" Sade laughed. "You have a letter allegedly written by our father 33 years ago. A letter we've never seen. A letter that conveniently names you as his daughter and heir. How much did you pay someone to forge it?" "I didn't." "Here's what I think," Mrs. Oladipo interrupted. "I think you're desperate. Your sister exposed you in America. Your inheritance is frozen. You're about to lose everything. So you invented a story about being connected to my family, hoping we'd be generous. Or stupid. That's not true. Then prove it." Mrs. Oladipo stood. "DNA test. Right now. We have a private clinic. We'll test you against my children. If you're truly Adeyemi's daughter, it will show. If you're not," her voice went cold, "I'll have you arrested for fraud and attempted theft." Grace looked at Lumi. He nodded slightly, encouraging. "Fine," Grace said. "Test me. I'm telling the truth." "We'll see," Mrs. Oladipo said. "The results take 72 hours. Until then, you stay away from this family. You don't contact us. You don't speak to media. You don't claim any connection to the Oladipo name." "Understood." Grace wanted to scream. Wanted to pull out Emanuel's letter and force them to read it. Wanted to make them see that she wasn't here to steal. She was here to find family. But she just nodded. "Understood." Grace was back in her hotel room when her phone rang. Chicago number. Mr. Mitchell, her lawyer. "Grace, I need to tell you something." His voice sounded wrong. Scared. "What happened?" "Blessing's lawyers are threatening malpractice suits. They're saying I conspired with you to defraud Emanuel. They're threatening my license, my practice. Grace, I have a family, I have other clients. I can't. You're dropping me. Silence. Then, I'm sorry? You should come home. Settle this quietly. Sometimes walking away is smarter than fighting. I'm not walking away. Then you're on your own. I can't help you anymore. I'm sorry. He hung up. Grace sat on the bed, phone in her hand, and felt the walls closing in. No lawyer, no money, no family support except Aunt Nettie, who was barely scraping by herself. Her phone buzzed. Text from Blessing. Saw you on Nigerian news, trying to scam another family. I almost feel bad for you. Almost. Give up, Grace. You've already lost. Grace started to type a response. Deleted it. What was the point? Another text, this time from Daniel. Grace, I'm sorry it came to this, but you have to understand. Blessing and I were building a life together. We can't have you constantly causing problems. Just let go. Move on. Find your own happiness. Grace stared at that message. Find your own happiness. From the man who'd married her, promised forever, then left her. For her sister, the moment he thought Blessing would inherit everything. She blocked both numbers. Opened her laptop. Checked her hotel bill. $2,200 for 5 nights. Due tomorrow. Checked her bank accounts. Still frozen. Checked her cash. To that it hit 47. If she paid the hotel, she'd have 647 left. Not enough for a plane ticket. Not enough for another hotel. Not enough for anything. Grace pulled up cheap accommodation websites. Found a hostel in Yaba, $15 a night. Shared bathroom. No air conditioning. Reviews warned tourists to avoid the area, but it was all she could afford. She packed her suitcase, checked out of Eco Hotel the next morning. The front desk manager looked at her with pity. Ms. Okafor, I hope things improve for you. Grace didn't respond, just wheeled her suitcase out into Lagos heat and hailed a taxi to Yaba. The hostel was exactly as bad as the reviews suggested. Thin mattress, rusty springs, bars on the windows, a shared bathroom down the hall that smelled like mold, and bleach mixed together in the worst possible way. Grace's room was barely bigger than a closet. 1 bed, 1 chair, a locker that didn't lock properly. She lay on the bed, staring at water stains on the ceiling, and thought about her fathers. Emanuel, who'd never hugged her but had built her an empire. Adeyemi, who died before she was born but had supposedly left instructions to protect her. Both men had tried, had loved her in their own broken ways, and she was about to lose everything they'd given her because she couldn't fight back from 4,000 miles away with $647 in her pocket. Grace's phone buzzed. Email from the hotel where she'd been staying. Ms. Okafor, several media outlets have contacted us asking about the American woman claiming false inheritance. We provided no comment, but wanted you to be aware. Great. Now she was famous. American scam artist targets Nigerian family. Another email. This one from Barrister Coker, the lawyer who'd sent her the letter about Chief Adeyemi. Ms. Grace, I've been instructed by the Oladipo family to cease all communication with you pending DNA test results. I apologize, but I must comply with family wishes. I hope this resolves favorably. Even the lawyer who'd invited her here was abandoning her. Grace closed her laptop, lay back on the thin mattress, listened to Lagos traffic outside, vendors shouting, music blasting from somewhere down the street. She'd never felt more alone in her life. 4 days later, someone broke into her locker while she was in the shared bathroom. They took her laptop, the laptop with copies of Emanuel's documents, evidence of Blessing's murder attempts, everything. Gone. Grace sat on the dirty hostel floor and finally cried. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from deep in your chest where hope used to live. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Nigerian. Grace Okafor? Yes. This is Barrister Amaka Nwosu. I represent the Oladipo family. You are hereby notified that if you do not leave Nigeria within 72 hours, we will file criminal charges for attempted fraud. You have no claim to the Oladipo estate. Your continued presence in Lagos constitutes harassment. Do you understand? Grace's voice came out flat. I understand. We've also contacted the U.S. Embassy, Your passport has been flagged. If you make further contact with the Oladipo family, you will be arrested. The line went dead. Grace pulled out her phone, looked at her contacts. Aunt Nettie. That was it. That was the only person left in the world who gave a damn about her. She almost called, almost asked Aunt Nettie to wire money for a plane ticket home, almost gave up. Then she thought about Emanuel's face when he'd signed his will. About the letter he'd written explaining everything. About how he'd said, "Forgive me for the coldness." Thought about Adeyemi, a man she'd never known, who'd given Emanuel $2 million and said, "Build this for my daughter, protect her, give her everything." Both men had fought for her when they were dying. She could fight for herself while she was still alive. Grace stood up, washed her face in the bathroom sink, made a decision. She wasn't leaving Nigeria. Not until she proved who she was. Mrs Oladipo couldn't sleep. He lay in his bedroom in the family estate, thinking about Grace's face when his mother had threatened her. The way she'd stood there, quiet and dignified, not screaming or begging or making scenes. Just, "Fine. Test me. I'm telling the truth." Lumi had watched his father die 33 years ago, had been 18 years old, sitting beside the hospital bed, holding father's hand, and father had grabbed him hard, had pulled Lumi close, had whispered with his last breaths, "Fine, Grace, my daughter. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her the money is hers. Emanuel has instructions. Find her, Olumide. Promise me." Lumi had promised, then spent 33 years thinking father had been delirious. That Grace was a fever dream. That father's last words were nonsense, until Grace showed up at the gates with father's eyes and father's stubborn chin and father's way of standing when she was nervous but trying not to show it. Lumi got out of bed at 3 a.m., called his private investigator, a man named Chidi, who'd worked for the family for 20 years. "I need you to investigate 2 Americans, Blessing Okafor and Daniel Wilson, everything. Bank records if you can get them, communications, history, everything." "This is about your American sister? She's not my sister unless DNA says so, but something's wrong. The way they talked about her on CNN, too practiced, too perfect. I need to know if they're lying." "I'll have something in 2 days." Chidi called back in 18 hours. "Mr. Lumi, you need to see this, in person." They met at a cafe in Lekki. Chidi slid a folder across the table. "Bank statements," Chidi said. "Blessing Okafor has been making wire transfers to 3 different men in Chicago. 5,000 here, 10,000 there, 25,000 last month. Notations say consultation fees and legal services." "Who are these men?" "Actors, unemployed. I found their profiles online. They do extra work, commercial gigs, background roles." Chidi pulled out photos. These are the same men who testified in Chicago court that they'd visited Emanuel Okafor during his final months and saw Grace manipulating him. Lumi felt his stomach turn. She paid them to lie. That's not all. Chidi opened his laptop, showed Lumi email after email. Daniel Wilson and Blessing Okafor. Communication going back 3 years. 3 years. During Grace's marriage. During Emanuel's illness. The whole time, Lumi read the emails. From Daniel Wilson to Blessing Okafor. Subject, the plan. Date, November 2021. Your dad's sick. Once he goes, we need to move fast. You inherit, we get married, Grace never knows what hit her. From Blessing Okafor. To Daniel Wilson. Subject, the plan. Date, March 2025. Dad left. Everything to Grace. $53 million, all the businesses. I got $5 million in a trust. Daniel, what do we do? From Daniel Wilson to Blessing Okafor. Subject, the plan. Date, March 2025. We contest. Say he was senile. Get witnesses to testify. Destroy her credibility. And this Nigeria thing, she thinks she's got a second inheritance? Perfect. We expose her as a fraud. She loses both. And maybe we get everything. Lumi closed the laptop. Grace was telling the truth. About everything, Chidi confirmed. I found hospital records. Grace was poisoned 3 times as a teenager. Police suspected the sister but couldn't prove it. Why didn't Emanuel press charges? Because he couldn't explain why without revealing Grace wasn't his biological daughter. He was protecting her the only way he knew how. Lumi stood. I need to show this to my mother. She won't want to believe it. Grace is still a threat. Grace isn't the threat. These two are. Lumi picked up the folder. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. Chief Mrs Oladipo sat in her late husband's study, reading the emails Lumi had brought her. She read them 3 times. Then she stood, walked to the window, looked out at the gardens Adeyemi had planted 40 years ago. Ma? Lumi said quietly. Grace is innocent. These people are trying to destroy her. I know. Then why did you threaten her? Why did you tell her to leave? Mrs. Oladipo turned, and Lumi saw something in her face he'd never seen before. Shame. Because I was angry, she said. Her voice cracked. Your father loved Grace's mother. Really loved her. Not the way he loved me. We had an arranged marriage, respectful, functional. But Ades, she said the name like it hurt. He loved her in a way he never loved me. Ma, when he was dying, he called her name, over and over. Ades, I'm sorry. Ades, tell Grace. And I sat there, his wife of 30 years, and listened to him call for another woman. Mrs. Oladipo wiped her eyes. So when Grace showed up, looking exactly like him, I saw her mother, saw the woman he actually wanted, and I was cruel. She doesn't deserve that. No, she doesn't. Mrs. Oladipo pulled an envelope from her husband's desk. Old, yellowed. This is the letter your father left, the one I've kept locked away for 33 years. She handed it to Lumi. He read it. My dear wife, if you're reading this, I am gone, and Grace has found you. I know you'll be angry. I know you'll want to reject her. But I'm asking you, as my last request, to give her a chance. Grace is my firstborn, my daughter with the woman I loved. I couldn't claim her publicly. My enemies would have killed her mother. So I gave Emanuel money and made him promise to protect her. Please, Nkem, don't punish my daughter for my choices. Give her the DNA test if you must, but give her a chance first. Lumi looked up. He loved her. He did. And I've spent 33 years being jealous of a dead woman and a daughter I've never met. Mrs. Oladipo straightened her wrapper. Find Grace. Bring her to the family compound in Abadan. I want to meet her properly. The DNA test, we'll still do it, but I owe her an apology first. And Mrs. Oladipo's voice hardened. We need to deal with her sister and that man. Blessing Okafor saw the news on Twitter. American woman agrees to DNA test with Oladipo family. Results expected in 72 hours. She called Daniel immediately. Did you see this? I saw it. If that test comes back positive, it won't. Blessing, it's a DNA test. We can bribe the lab. Nigeria isn't like America. Standards are different. Everyone has a price. Blessing was already booking a flight. I'm going to Lagos. That's insane. What's insane is letting Grace walk away with $400 million while we get nothing. Blessing's voice rose. I'm the real daughter. I'm the one who deserves this. And I'm going to make sure that test shows exactly what I need it to show. She hung up. 2 days later, Blessing arrived in Lagos with $100,000 cash and Daniel beside her. She found the lab processing Grace's DNA. Found the technician, young, poorly paid, desperate. I need a favor, Blessing said, sliding an envelope across his desk. 50,000 American dollars. You make sure the results show 0 genetic match. The technician stared at the money. Ma, this is illegal. It's justice. That woman is scamming my family. Help me expose her, and you'll never see this kind of money again in your life. The technician took the money. The results will show no match. But what Blessing didn't know was that Lumi had run a second test. Different lab. International certification. No connection to the Oladipo family. 2 tests. 1 truth. Lagos High Court was packed. Media everywhere. Cameras. Journalists from 3 continents. Grace sat between Mrs. Oladipo, who'd personally come to the hostel in Yaba to bring her to court, and Lumi. both of them holding her hands. Across the aisle, Blessing and Daniel, both looking confident, smug. Judge Adebayo entered. This hearing will determine genetic relationship between Ms. Grace Okafor and the late Chief Adeyemi Oladipo. Barrister Coker, present the findings. Barrister Coker stood, opened the first envelope, read, Grace Okafor. 0% genetic match to Chief Adeyemi Oladipo. No biological relationship confirmed. The courtroom exploded. Blessing shot to her feet, screaming, I told you, she's a fraud. Arrest her. Daniel was grinning, triumphant. Grace felt the world spin. No, that's impossible. Mrs. Oladipo squeezed her hand. Wait. Lumi stood. Your Honor, I have secondary results. From an independent laboratory. Judge Adebayo frowned. Secondary? Yes, Your Honor. International certification. I ran a second test to ensure accuracy. Lumi pulled out a sealed envelope. The first lab was compromised. Blessing's face went white. You can't, that's not... Lumi handed the envelope to the judge. Judge Adebayo opened it. Read. His expression changed. Grace Okafor, 99.97% genetic match to Chief Adeyemi Oladipo. Confirmed biological daughter. Silence. Then Lumi played the recording. Audio of Blessing bribing the lab technician. Her voice clear as day. $50,000. Make sure the results show 0 genetic match. The courtroom went insane. That's taken out of context, Blessing screamed. He's lying. The lab technician has already confessed, Lumi said calmly, and provided bank records showing the $50,000 deposit from Ms. Blessing Okafor's account. Arrest her, Judge Adebayo ordered. Ms. Blessing Okafor, you're charged with bribery, obstruction of justice, and fraud. 2 officers grabbed Blessing. She fought, screamed. Grace, help me. I'm your sister. Grace just looked at her, said nothing. Daniel tried to slip toward the exit. Tokunbo blocked him. Where are you going, friend? I'm not involved. Email evidence says otherwise. Lumi showed the judge his phone. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Your Honor, Mr. Wilson should be detained as well. Agreed, Judge Adebayo said. Detain him. As they dragged Daniel out, he looked at Grace one last time. Grace, please. She turned away. Mrs. Oladipo stood. Your Honor, the Oladipo family formally acknowledges Grace Okafor as Chief Adeyemi Oladipo's biological daughter. We request recognition of her inheritance rights. So ordered. Judge Adebayo looked at Grace. Ms. Okafor, welcome to your family. I'm sorry it required such dramatic proof. Grace couldn't speak. Lumi put his arm around her. Told you. You're an Oladipo. 3 months later, Daniel was released from Nigerian custody. Blessing had taken all the blame, claimed he was an unwitting participant. He was deported, banned from ever returning to Nigeria. He flew back to Chicago, found his apartment gone, his job gone, LinkedIn destroyed. His mother wouldn't take his calls. So he did what desperate men do. Bought another ticket to Lagos. Showed up at the Oladipo estate. I need to see Grace, please. Tell her it's Daniel. Tell her I'm sorry. The guard spoke into his radio. 5 minutes later, Tokunbo walked out. She doesn't want to see you. Please, just 5 minutes. You married her to steal her inheritance. You left her for her sister. You testified against her on CNN. Tokunbo's voice was ice. My sister is worth $400 million. You left her when you thought she was worth nothing. Your math was very, very bad, my friend. I made mistakes. You made choices. Tokunbo stepped closer, and now you live with them. Leave. Don't come back. If you contact her again, Nigerian prisons are waiting. Daniel looked past him, saw Grace at a window on the second floor. She was watching. He raised his hand. Half wave, half plea. Grace turned away from the window, disappeared into the house. The last time he ever saw her, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Adeyemi Okafor Academy for Overlooked Children happened on a bright Lagos afternoon. Grace stood in front of the building, 3 stories, yellow walls, playground, and looked at the crowd. Mrs. Oladipo beside her, calling herself Grace's Nigerian mother now. Lumi on her other side, her brother, Her best friend. Tokunbo and Sade in the crowd. Relationship still complicated, but they sent Christmas cards now. Came to family dinners. Tried. Aunt Nettie, crying happy tears, and photos of both fathers on the wall inside. Emanuel and Adeyemi, side by side. This academy is for every overlooked child, Grace said into the microphone. Every kid told they don't belong. Every son or daughter of complicated circumstances. You belong. You matter. You're not outside children. You're children. Period. She cut the ribbon. 50 kids flooded in. All outside children from Nigerian families. All offered free education, counseling, legal help, and trust funds. That evening, Grace visited 2 graves. Emanuel's in Chicago. She placed white lilies. I understand now, Daddy. Thank you for loving me enough to make me think you didn't. Then Adeyemi's in Ibadan. She placed roses. Mrs Oladipo stood beside her. He loved you. More than reputation. More than comfort. He loved you enough to give you away to keep you safe. Grace knelt, touched the stone. Thank you for the song. For Emanuel. For loving Mom. For loving me enough to make the hardest choice. The sun set over Ibadan. And Grace felt, for the first time ever, like she belonged. Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. Emanuel left Grace an empire. Adeyemi left her a family. But more than that, they left her survival skills. Strength. Character forged in fire. Blessing had affection and learned nothing. Wanted what wasn't hers and lost what was. Daniel had opportunity and threw it away, calculating percentages. Grace had nothing but questions and coldness. And became everything. Because real inheritance isn't money. It's what you do with it. It's choosing to build instead of destroy. It's protecting overlooked children instead of becoming someone who overlooks. Love doesn't always look like love. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like leaving. Sometimes it looks like building empires for people who think you hate them. But it's still love. And that's the only inheritance that matters. Subscribe if this moved you. Like if you believe being overlooked is sometimes protection. Comment. Have you realized someone's coldness was actually love? Tell me your story. Share this with someone who's been the overlooked child. Someone who wondered why they weren't chosen. Someone who needs to hear that the people who didn't claim them might have loved them most. Grace's fight is over. Her empire is secure. Both fathers can rest.